the program first, and then we'll have a short meeting afterwards. Sitting at the head table are the people that will be taking part in the program. And some of them on the program, you see 2 names. These people are going to take on the part of the person that they're going to be talking about. So they're not going to be Dickie and Ina May. They're going to be somebody else. So, in other words, whatever they read or whatever they say is going to be the person of that they're acting. Okay? On the program, also going down in Flanders Fields, that will be, I started out with the poem in Flanders Fields, but somebody sent me the record, so we're going to be listening to somebody sing it. And the words are down at the bottom of the page. How many of you are familiar with the poem in Flanders Fields? You probably had it in elementary school or... Why the poppy? The Remembrance Poppy is an artificial red flower that has been used since 1918 to commemorate military personnel who have died in wars. In the past 4 years, the Ladies of St. Anne have honored prisoner of wars and missing in action by performing the Missing Man table. And last year, we did the Gold Star Mothers. The program this evening, the Remembrance Poppy, will take you back to the early 1900s. As I mentioned, the ladies sitting at the head table will take on the personality of 2 Fort Kent war heroes, nationally known figures, and events during World War I. My research about the poppy brought me to the affiliation of the American Legion in Fort Kent. And when it was started after World War I. How often have we driven by the American Legion Martin Klein post in Fort Kent and not wondered who were Martin and Klein? Tonight, you will hear the voices of George Martin and Kenneth Klein, the 2 Fort Kent doughboys, heroes that the American Legion post was named after. You will hear about how the red poppy inspired the World War I poem in Flanders Fields and was promoted by a University of Georgia professor and a volunteer of the American YMCA and National Poppy Day. You will hear from a Navy veteran and an American Legion national president. You will hear facts about World War I that you probably learned in school but forgot. And you will hear about the formation of the American Legion. And now I would like to present Lieutenant Colonel John McCrae.
I'm Lieutenant Colonel John McCrae. I'm a Canadian who served in the First World War. I was a major when a young friend and former student, Lieutenant Alexis Elmer of Ottawa, was killed on May 2, 1914. He was buried in the cemetery in Ghent, the capital of Flanders, Belgium. I had performed the funeral ceremony in the absence of the chaplain. It was so painful to see rows and rows of graves where my comrades had recently been buried. In 1915, at the Second Battle of Ypres, a small commune in Flanders, Belgium, I was in charge of a first aid post while serving on the front lines. My heart ached for the soldiers killed fighting to liberate Belgium. On May 3, 1915, I wrote in pencil on a page from my dispatch book a poem that has come to be known as In Flanders Fields. I described the poppies that mark the graves of the fallen soldiers who died fighting for their country. The death of Lieutenant Elmer inspired me to write In Flanders Fields. It was a response to the death of thousands of my countrymen, and it was a firm belief that their deaths should not be in vain. Now 620,000 Canadians served in World War I. As all great art does, the poem outlived me. I died of pneumonia in early 1918. Other poets were inspired to write similar poems that drew upon my imagery and words, especially Rowena Michael.
So tonight I'm going to be Rowena Michael. And she leaves this for us. I love to read poetry, and I even write poems when something touches my heart. I was inspired to write a poem entitled We Shall Keep the Faith after reading the poem In Flanders Fields, written by Lieutenant Colonel John McCrae during World War I. In the last stanza of my poem, I expressed my idea to wear a red poppy. And now the torch and the poppy red we wear in honor of our dead. Fear not that you have died for naught. We'll teach the lessons that you have wrought in Flanders Fields. I've decided I would always wear a poppy to honor the fallen. I shared my idea at a business meeting in 1919, 1 year after World War I. They were so encouraged by the idea of honoring our dead soldiers that they gave me $10 to purchase poppies for all of them to wear. And this was essentially the first time a donation was accepted in exchange for that small red flower, the poppy. I was thrilled to learn that my efforts and those of World War I veterans were recognized by the American Legion and the American Legion Auxiliary. They adopted the poppy as the national memorial flower during their annual conventions on September 27, 1920. In 1924, the distribution of poppies became a national program of the American Legion. Millions of red crepe paper poppies, their petals bound together for veterans as a part of a therapeutic rehabilitation. They have been distributed in exchange for donations that support the welfare of veterans and active military personnel and their families. Now I'll step out of role, and it's the 21st century. Last year, in 2017, the American Legion Auxiliary members throughout the United States distributed nearly 6 million poppies and raised almost $4 million in donations that went directly to help veterans, military, and their families in need. Did you buy and wear a red poppy?
Navy Flyers Creed. I am a United States Navy pilot. My countrymen built the best airplane in the world and entrusted me in it. They trained me to fly it. I will use it to the absolute limit of my power. With my fellow pilots, air crew, and deck crews, my plane and I will do anything necessary to carry out our tremendous responsibilities. I will always remember we are part of an unbeatable combat team, the United States Navy. When the going is fast and rough, I will not falter. I will be uncompromising in every blow I strike. I will be humble in victory. I am a United States Navy flyer. I have dedicated myself to my country with its many millions of races, colors, and creeds. They and their way of life are worthy of my greatest protective effort. I ask the help of God in making that effort great enough. This retired Navy veteran pilot, Donald Bowker, is my godchild and Burnett's son. And you can see his picture, one of his pictures on the bulletin board.
My name is Norma Brown. As the American Legion Auxiliary National President in 1977, 41 years ago, I reminded the auxiliary members of the poppy's significance. What we must keep in mind is that the basic purpose of wearing the poppy before on Memorial Day is to honor the dead. The red poppy has become an important icon of the wars, becoming known as the Remembrance Poppy. It is an individual's personal gesture of remembrance of the sacrifice made by our fallen Americans. The American Legion family brought National Poppy Day to the United States by asking Congress in 2017 to designate the Friday before Memorial Day as National Poppy Day, which will be on May 24, 2019, next year. National Poppy Day is a strong renewal of our nation's commitment to a powerful reminder of the cost of our freedom with 100 years of rich tradition. Millions of people worldwide wear the poppy as a call to honor living veterans and those who lost their lives in all wars. The custom of wearing a red poppy can be tracked back to 1918, 100 years ago, when Moina Michael popularized the idea of wearing a red poppy in memory of the lives lost in World War I.
In Flanders Fields. In Flanders Fields is forever linked to the Great World War I. It is a poem of war. It is a poem for Canada. It is a poem for the world to remember and reflect upon. Like so many other lost sons, John McCrae would sleep forever where the poppies grow. But even in death, his voice, through his famous poem, people can continue to honor the memory of those who sacrificed themselves for a cause, freedom. In 2006, Anthony Hutchcroft composed the music and recorded in Flanders Fields.
On November 18, 1920, a group of World War I veterans met to discuss the formation of a Legion post in Fort Kent. It was a long 3 years before the application forms were accepted. On June 25, 1923, 16 World War I veterans met at Henry Netto's store to sign the charter. Joseph H. Netto was selected post commander, and Earl Roberts, Fort Kent postmaster, was elected adjutant. The two of the Fort Kent buddies, George Martin and Kenneth Klein, one a Jew and one Franco-American, were among the first to volunteer from Fort Kent and also the first to die. For this ultimate sacrifice, Martin Klein, American Legion Post number 133, proudly honors their name. The bodies were killed in Meuse, Argonne, France. Both died on May 10, 1918. Kenneth Klein's twin, Samuel, did join the army. He was also killed in Argonne in 1920, 2 years after his twin, Kenneth. They are both buried in the Firth Israel Cemetery in Bangor. Charters signed by the following World War veterans on June 25, 1923. Alfred T. Berry, Fred T. Bouchard, William H. Cunliffe Jr., John A. Sear, Dr. I.R. Sear, DDS, Alfred H. Daigle, Carl W. Day, Augustus D. Dow, Clarence J. Labby, Oram E. Michaud, George E. Morneau, Joseph H. Netto, Eloi J. Pelletier, Earl H. Roberts, Alfred D. Soucy.
We are two Fort Kent buddies. My name is George Martin. I was born in Lewiston in 1893. I grew up in Fort Kent. I am 24 and a half years old.
My name is Kenneth Klein. I was born in Poland, Russia in 1893. I grew up in Fort Kent, moving from New York. I too am 24 years old.
My family is French. We attend the St. Louis Catholic Church and read the Bible. We speak French and English.
My family is Jewish. We attend the synagogue on Hall Street and read the Torah. We spoke Hebrew and English.
I attended a one-room schoolhouse.
Me too. Model school was built in 1902, the convent in 1905.
We slaughtered pigs for a year-long pork, and Mom made croutons.
Our family never ate pork.
We celebrate Christmas.
We celebrate Hanukkah.
I graduated from Madawaska Training School in 1914. I was class president. Richard Crocker was a new teacher that year.
I did not attend MTS, but Joseph and Yedby were George's classmates. George and I became buddies when we both joined the National Guard on June 28, 1917, after the United States had declared war on Germany in April 1917.
We both had 3 months of training. We had signed up for duty as infantrymen, foot soldiers called doughboys. We left for France as privates. We departed the United States on September 27, 1917.
We had plenty of time during that 3,000-mile journey on the ship to talk about our last day in Fort Kent.
Kenneth and I stood on the Bangor and Aroostook train station platform in Fort Kent along with the other young men. Mothers were holding on to their sons, some for the last time, leaving to who knows where, across the ocean to a foreign land, Parents didn't know if the train would return us alive or in a wooden box. But they all had hope.
Family members were also there. My twin brother Samuel and other Klein relatives, Claude, Joseph, Ellis, Louis, Zebedee, and Uncle Solomon Klein, all wishing me a safe journey and reciting the Jewish prayers for our safety during the war. Samuel was thinking of joining the army, which he did a year later. Joseph and Zebedee were planning to attend the Madawaska Training School. They did and graduated in 1912. They all had future plans. Our futures were uncertain, but we had hope.
Kenneth and I were sad to be leaving our families and friends, but we were so excited about taking our first train ride to Augusta to be outfitted. The train had been coming to Fort Kent for 15 years, since 1902, but we had never ridden on the train. All aboard! After some last handshakes, good luck wishes, and lastly a tight body squeeze from our moms, plus a whisper in my ear from Mom, don't forget to say your prayers. Bonne chance, mon garçon. We boarded the train. On the last step, we turned around, and facing all the people on the long platform, we waved our last wave.
Only when the train station was out of sight did some of the young men indiscreetly wipe their tears from their eyes, including us 24-year-old men. We were proud Americans off to war, but weary of the unknown.
We both had high hopes that we would be some of the passengers on the B&A returning soldiers to Fort Kent after the end of the war. I was on board, but I did not walk down the steps of the passenger train.
I too was on board, but I did not walk down the steps of that passenger train.
My grandparents and the Klein family were neighbors. My mother, Teresa, and Kenneth Klein were childhood friends. Wow. That information came alive through Burnett's research for this evening's program. My grandparents lived at the end of Hall Street. My grandfather, Paul Charette, farmed the land where the Lonesome Pines ski slopes are located. They had many farm animals, cows, pigs, and plenty of chickens. I remember Mom telling us stories about growing up on the farm in town. She sold fresh eggs to the neighbors, including the Jewish family next door. She never shared any of her croutons grandmother made with the Kleins because they were Jewish and did not eat pork. My grandmother, Sophie Jalbert Charette, died in 1912 at 35 years of age. leaving 7 children. My grandfather died 2 years later. Mom and the siblings were sent to the Kuan-Senegat, the boarding school. Kenneth Klein never saw Mom again. He had enlisted in the Army and never came back to Fort Kent alive. I believe we were brought up respecting all people, no matter what background, because of Mom and Kenneth Klein's friendship. The house, by the way, still stands at the end of Hall Street, and it is still owned by the Jalbert descendants. I want to sincerely thank Burnett for the superb job she did in researching the local and national history presented here this evening.
And that, my friends, is the end of our program. We'll have a meeting in a few